Tony Khan, and he's good enough to join the show right now. Tony, it's Maggie and Perloff. How you doing, pal?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on, Maggie.
What a event last night. Really fun. Callis turning heel, setting up for a big summer for AEW. But I want to get to you on the program last night, Tony. You teased a big announcement coming next week. Now, the internet's on fire about what this could possibly be. Can you give us a little hint about what's to come next week?
Well, it's a very exciting week for AEW. We're in Austin, Texas next week, and we've got a big lineup of matches. And also, I have a big announcement. I can't say exactly what it is, but I did tease the involvement of TNT. And next week, we've got Wednesday Night Dynamite on TBS. So I did say keep an eye on Wednesday Night Dynamite on TBS, but also there may be something involving TNT that day.
Another show from TNT with certain tall basketball players?
No, Perloff.
It's not going to be inside the NBA, but that's another good show on TNT. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in AEW, and I also thought last night on Wednesday Night Dynamite was one of the best episodes we've had. Like you said, Maggie, we had the great cage match and the shocking ending and just so much great wrestling in the 2 hours on TBS last night.
A lot of fun. Tony Khan is our guest, founder, CEO of AEW, All Elite Wrestling. Okay, so, Tony, we've talked with you over the last couple years, and as AEW has grown and grown, you kind of tease that maybe some things are happening with the television contracts. How different is what you're negotiating potentially now from when you started this outfit a few years ago?
Well, this thing started when I was at a party in Beverly Hills, and I was visiting with a friend who happened to be the president of TBS and TNT at the time. And essentially he gave me a startup deal, and it didn't pay great, but it gave us a chance to get our foot in the door and start what has become the true challenger brand in professional wrestling worldwide. We have just done the biggest opening day ticket sales in the history of professional wrestling for our show, AEW All in London. We've already sold over 60,000 tickets. We actually sold over 60,000 tickets in the first day, and we're over $8 million in ticket sales already with months to go at London Wembley Stadium. So we've built one of the biggest brands in the world, and it all started from an idea and a bunch of wrestlers who took a chance on this and helped us get this thing launched from the ground up. And it's so exciting to be able to do this every Wednesday on TBS and Fridays on TNT, and still big announcement to come next week on TBS also.
There we go. Tony Khan is our guest, and Wembley holds a place, I think, in your heart for two different reasons. One, you mentioned about the 60,000 tickets that were already sold for the event you have coming up in August, but also for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, of course, you are an executive at as well. We'll get to that in just a moment. But going back to Wembley, so you guys sell all these tickets in the very beginning. Congratulations, 60,000. I believe this would be the biggest venue you guys have booked since the beginning of AEW. So in your mind, like, how much is riding on that promotion going well? Or do you feel like you guys are at a point now where it's pretty turnkey?
Well, I think we do great events, and all of our pay-per-view shows have been known to deliver. We have a huge event coming up later in May 28th in Las Vegas, AEW Double or Nothing, and that's going to be a huge show. And I think that people can always expect our events to deliver, and firsthand, Maggie, from watching them, there's great main event matches on all of our big pay-per-view shows, some of the best wrestling in the world. And I think people can expect that level of show when we go for AEW All In, just like we always try to bring. But certainly there's a big expectations when you have such a big crowd. And like you said, it's the biggest venue we've ever run. But we have great experiences running all over the world. And like you've seen there in New York, we've done AEW Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And that has been the biggest venue we've run in the U.S., and that's also been a great success for us. And believe it or not, those events will happen within less than a month of each other. So that'll certainly be the biggest month in the history of AEW.
No sleep for Tony Khan. We know that, Tony. So I'm looking at your calendar, and I'm looking at the events that are coming up for AEW, and you have a lot of them. June 21st, though, in Chicago, if I have that date correctly. Obviously, a very famous wrestler who has had a tumultuous time in AEW, and that's CM Punk, famously from Chicago. The internet's on fire with rumors, Tony. Is it possible we see a CM Punk comeback on June 21st?
Well, I can't comment on that, but I do think it's very exciting that AEW is running a lot of big events. Chicago's been one of the best cities for AEW for a long time, and I'm very, very excited to be back there. It's a home city to me personally, growing up in Illinois and spending most of my life there until my dad got involved in the NFL and I moved to Jacksonville. And now I live on the road every week, literally 52 weeks a year. But it'll be great to be back in Chicago, certainly for AEW.
As the founder CEO of AEW, Tony, what did you learn from the CM Punk, the Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks situation that happened with the brawl behind the scenes? Like, what did you learn from that as an executive?
Well, I can't really comment. I haven't talked about that particular situation since it happened specifically, but I think in the time since, AEW has continued to hit new heights and grow, and I have a lot of respect for all the people you just said as professional wrestlers, and I think we have a great company going right now, and certainly every Wednesday night on TBS. Some of the wildest action, and certainly this week I think was one of the best episodes we've ever done, and with a big announcement coming next week, I just think we've been able to sustain and continue to develop as a wrestling company.
Tony, shifting gears to the NFL, the Jags have 2 games back-to-back in London, one in Wembley Stadium, one in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How long has that been in the works that the Jags would have the first team to have 2 games in England?
Well, it's a great question, Andrew. It's something we've talked about for several years, and I think it was something even dating back to before the pandemic lockdown seasons. And really, now that I think it's become very viable for us, and now it's a great solution playing as the home team and the road team, with the Jaguars playing back-to-back games in London and making history. Hopefully it can be an advantage for the team staying over there between the games on the field, but I also think off the field it can be great for business, and it's a great opportunity for the Jaguars organization, and we do it without taking another home game from our great fans in Jacksonville, which I think is awesome. And I think it hopefully will go really well for us. Also, my family and I own and operate a Premier League club, Fulham Football Club. And I think we have really a lot to look forward to next season there also. So with AEW, Fulham, and the Jaguars all operating in London coming up, in the upcoming months, I think it's going to be a really exciting time for us. And I think the Jaguars there, it's a great opportunity to make history. And coming off last season, everything we built with Doug and Trent, I think there's a great opportunity to go there and take a big step for the Jaguars and hopefully for the whole NFL.
Tony Khan is our guest, executive, of course, with the Jaguars, the founder and CEO of AEW. Also mentioned Fulham FC. I should have put that in there. Tony, you're such a forward-facing guy and a forward-looking guy, I should say, right? And you're always thinking about the future and strategizing. There's like an idea that down the road, there could be a whole division in the NFL in Europe. Is that far-fetched, or is that a potential reality down the road in your eyes?
Well, who's to say, but I think certainly I couldn't comment to that, but I think it would be very challenging logistically. And, who knows? With great technological advances, you never know, but I think that would be very challenging.
Tony, you mentioned logistics, and I know you go to every AEW event and you try to go to every Jags game. How do you do the London games? Like, what's a week like in the life of Tony Khan when the Jags are overseas?
That's such a great question, Andrew. I did this trip last year when the Jags were in London, and I actually had AEW Friday Night Rampage live, so I flew over, and I actually, thinking it would be fun and also great for promotional purposes, I brought some of the AEW wrestlers with me from the show, and Orange Cassidy and Dr. Britt Baker traveled, and they saw really Fulham and the Jacksonville Jaguars play, and it was a great weekend of events. I was hoping for better results, but it ended up being great seasons for both teams, and it was a great opportunity for me to do some promotional work because I already had my eye on Wembley Stadium and had already planted an ad with Claudio Castagnoli and Trevor Lawrence that ran in Wembley Stadium, and we did a ton of promotion for the game and the event, even dating back to October, because this is something that I had been thinking about and dreaming about for a really long time. So I think the fact that the Jaguars are playing the back-to-back home games, and we've got Fulham playing in London, and AEW coming to London, it's going to be great for me. But to your point, Andrew, it'll be great to have all these things running around the same time in the same place, because certainly the travel does add up, and it's a lot of miles. But that, particularly last season, was fun, and I'm sure we'll have fun with it this year too when the Jaguars play back-to-back games in London.
Well, if you're doing what you love, if you're doing what you love, they say it's not work. Tony Khan with us for a few more minutes here on Maggie and Perloff. Okay, let's wrap up something and tie up a loose end from the last time you were on the show, Tony. And there was, at the time, it was reported that WWE was for sale. Now, we know since we last talked that they were sold to Endeavor. They're going to merge now with the UFC. You said at the time you were potentially interested in buying WWE. That went viral. A lot of people grabbed onto that. Can you update us? Like, how far did that ever get? Did you ever get to, make a formal offer to WWE? How far down the line did that get?
I can't speak to that except to say that I was interested. And I think it'll be also very interesting to see what happens with that sale. Certainly, in many ways, it's a big positive to the pro wrestling business. And I think the huge attendance numbers and TV and streaming numbers for pro wrestling, and the great sales for AEW on pay-per-view, and all the big merchandising numbers show that pro wrestling is really back as an industry in many major ways in 2023, and AEW is a big part of the conversation. So I think that's all been really positive for us.
Tony, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. We know you're super busy flying from time zone to time zone and continent to continent, so we appreciate you stopping by. We're looking forward to the big announcement next Wednesday on AEW when you guys are in Austin, Texas. And, of course, best of luck to the Jags if we don't talk to you before the season starts.
Well, I really appreciate it. I hope I talk to you both before the season starts, and I hope you both have a great rest of the day. Thanks for having me on, Maggie and Andrew, and hopefully see you soon.